welcome to the Overwatch Pacific Championship. I am Dallas Easy Fight City. Joining me here this evening, it's going to be Matt Smite Ross on the desk. And we are in week 4, day number 2, and we've got some sharp matches lined up tonight, just like Smite's new haircut here. It's going to be Machi coming back to back, first up against the two Japanese teams, SunSister and Detonator Gold. They're going to be playing back to back as well, just after that one, taking on Hong Kong Attitude. Then Fireball coming up with Blank, and it's going to be a night to remember indeed.
Now, I mean, Machi, right? Last week, before what happened last night, we'll talk about that in a second, I still would say these guys are favored to beat both the Japanese teams, even in back-to-back matches. But hey, something incredible happened last night for Machi.
I mean, most definitely. Machi taking down Flash Wolves last night. What an astonishing achievement in itself there. I mean, I don't think anyone would have called that coming through.
It was incredible. I mean, this is the 6th place team taking on the 2nd place team, Flash Wolves, and international brands, and they smashed them. I mean, well, it was a close match, but hey, 3-2. Machi putting themselves up there, no one saw that coming.
I mean, it's amazing to consider. You know, we sort of talked about this being such a long-winded tournament and these teams have to constantly improve. You know, Machi showing that they're definitely making those improvements, and Flash Wolves looking a little bit shaky as well, you know, dropping that match as well to AHQ after that one as well. So coming off 2 losses there last night. Flash Wolves won't be playing until next week, I believe, so they're going to have a lot to go back onto the drawing board. But this matchup here, SunSister against Machi. Machi obviously the favored team here, you know, playing back-to-back at home as well, so they have that advantage. But SunSister, you know, picked themselves up their first win last weekend when they got to play against Detonator Gold. Should work well for their confidence, I feel, coming into this.
So another thing to remember as well, Machi and SunSister played on the very first day of the Overwatch Pacific Championship during the very first round, and Machi, to put it lightly, kind of demolished SunSister. The big difference now, though, is that Night Owl has been subbed out, and we've got XQQ coming in, and this guy has been just all over social media with his plays last week. Matt McCree. I mean,
that McCree play was
War and Nelly. I mean, he came out of nowhere, right? This guy was incredible, brought so much to the team, and if they can leverage that guy and the rest of his skill so much more, then I think they do have a shot at taking down Machi, even after last night.
Most definitely. They definitely need, I guess, a more powerhouse DPS player for their side, because it's something that it feels like their team play is still quite good. It's just they don't really lack that punch that they really need to sort of take out some of these players before the rest of the, I guess, their teammates start dropping. You know, the DPS players on the teams they've come up against are just that little bit cut ahead of the rest of them. And we just had a look at this before, you know, with the Overwatch World Cup coming up, about how Japan actually qualified ahead of even Australia.
I mean, one place, but
still one place. You know, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. You know, you're still winning, still ahead. So it's interesting to note that, like, you know, that average level of, you know, the top 100 players from Japan are actually quite highly up there. You know, there's something's working out for them over there.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a pretty different story, right? I mean, Japan has their own server, I believe, or at least they do in other games, but also solo queue. Even when you're queuing up with 6-man pre-mates, it's completely different to tournament play, right? And Blank have proven that. I mean, even in a lot of other esports, Australia is kind of looked down upon, but in here, that Blank have proven everyone wrong. Blank are showing that Australia is a very strong country, a very strong region, Oceania as a whole, in fact. They've come into this completely undefeated, and even though Japan is sitting ahead of them in the Overwatch World Cup in terms of solo queue standings, Blank have demolished them, and Japan have not shown up at all yet.
Well, we will get to see the likes of Blank in the final matchup of the night, taking on Fireball. And Fireball being one of those teams that have sort of been constantly improving, you know, ripping, I guess, you know, the strength that Thailand has as well. I do expect a lot of those players from the Fireball team to probably be playing for their World Cup squad as well there.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, coming into this matchup here, I really feel that SunSister, they're going to have their work cut out for them in this. And considering Machi are playing from the home side, they are going to be playing, you know, on Machi's terms as well, so it's going to make it even harder for them. Even with XQQ coming into this, I think it's still going to be extremely difficult for them.
I think it's definitely going to be, I mean, it's hard to put so much weight on one player, but XQQ has to do so much of the work for SunSister right now. They do make mostly correct decisions in terms of their macro play, their team play, but what I want to see them do is start leveraging XQQ more, start making him the focus of your win conditions, right? Recognize how Machi are going to win. If it's control point, payload, assault, it doesn't matter. How are they going to win the next fight? How are they going to win the whole game? And set XQQ on that win condition. How is he going to shut it down? If there's a Tracer going nuts, put him on McCree, shut that Tracer down. If there's a soldier going nuts, put him on Genji, shut that soldier down. There's so many options. But a lot of them have to be focused on XQQ because that guy, to put it frankly, is so much of the skill coming out of SunSister.
Because I mean, I watched the Machi Flash Wolves game last night, And I believe it was Ever when he mentioned sort of he wasn't really too impressed with Nunez's Pharah coming into this. And so if I guess he's still sort of underperforming on the Pharah, you know, he won't have too much to worry about because he won't have this McCree constantly pressuring him. He's probably going to opt and go with something else. But unless, I guess, he tries that out again this evening, I don't think that they're going to have to worry too much about a Pharah, because I guess it's something maybe with just the Japanese teams as a whole, but their Pharah plays are slightly below, I'd say, the rest of the tournament's teams in regards to Pharah, like pharmacy combo.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even if you include Japan in that too, these are all still teams that are sitting at the bottom of the table, right? And if you're going to compare them skill-wise to just other teams mechanically, then yeah, these players are going to be sitting as getting worse results. Rai did show up on his Pharah. I mean, we talked about Nunez playing last night against Flash Wolves, but Rai also plays the Pharah too. Did get actually impressive results earlier on, so we might actually see him come out on the Pharah as well. But again, you talk about XQQ, if he's on McCree, we even know that he likes Widowmaker as well, another hero that's great at shutting down a Pharah. One shot, take it out of the sky, especially if there's a pharmacy there as well. It completely isolates a Mercy as well. That's a big thing about playing against the pharmacy comp, right? If you take out the Pharah, Mercy loses so much of her defensive capability from being able to fly up into the sky, out of the danger of the likes of Tracer on the ground, or even any of the tanks that are running along down there trying to find the Mercy too. So taking out that Pharah with one shot from Widowmaker, which is something that XQQ can do, can definitely play so much in SunSister's favor.
Yeah, well, so I've sort of talked about XQQ here, you know. Who else, I guess, along the lines on SunSister really sort of stands out to you? I know Elu's sort of, for me, you know, stood out with, I guess, some very cerebral, sort of smart plays coming through. But for me personally, you know, a lot of these players seem very quiet most of the time. Maybe it's just because they really haven't had a chance to really explode, in my opinion. But I mean, for you, is there anyone on SunSister you sort of want to highlight before we get into this?
Yeah, you bring up Elu, definitely someone that, I mean, it's kind of like the rest of SunSister with the exception of XQQ, is that a lot of them aren't too stand out because they're not doing anything incredibly amazing right now. I mean, look at their results. They're only one win, and that's only against Detonator Gold, and even then, most of that was still XQQ. Elu, I mean, you brought him up, can definitely look to start impressing not just me, but everyone at home, their fans as well, can definitely look to bring more results. I just want someone that's not XQQ to start showing up, start being that player that we're screaming at, getting a tweet out there with 500 retweets with his amazing play, right? I mean, this guy, XQQ, is stealing all of the fame, all of the glory from the rest of his players on SunSister right now.
Stealing or earning?
Definitely earning, right? But it's still something that's taking away from the rest of his team, right? Because we're not recognizing what they can do because XQQ is right here, the rest of his team is just here, right? And I want to see the rest of his team start coming up and working at his level. I mean, that's a big ask because the guy is a fantastic player, but there are big plays that can come out from these teams, right? And I want to see them start coming out from SunSister, right? I want to start knowing who's on SunSister apart from XQQ. He's just blocking out the rest of the players in my mind.
I mean, coming into the first matchup here, you know, we're going to be going to Control. I mean, if you're Machi here, I feel like you want to sort of go with maybe Oasis or something along these lines. Because I do feel, even though I mentioned, like, you know, Nunez wasn't really turning up on the Pharah, and then you said Rai obviously was being a little bit more standout on that, I still feel like their Pharah players, you know, ahead of these Japanese teams by still quite a margin. You know, they can run the pharmacy, they can still run, you know, ground DPS, they can run Soldier, they can run McCree if they want to as well. They've shown that they can do that. I think Oasis is what is, I guess, the strongest pick coming out from them. Do you expect to see anything else?
One thing I wouldn't expect to see is probably Lijiang Tower. If Machi want to throw a bit of a spanner in the works against SunSister, I think that's the most common, I mean, it's the most common control map we see overall in the tournament so far, but also it's something that SunSister has played on most of the time. In fact, every time they've had the pick on control, they've picked Lijiang Tower. If you want to take that away from them, that's a lot of comfort that SunSister suddenly don't have. It's also a map, specifically Control Center, where XQQ can really go off on the McCree as well. So picking something, like you said, Oasis, maybe even Ilios, where you can actually run a similar comp through each of the three maps there, which for one, doesn't give anything away, and two, if you're good at one comp, then you can just stick with it the whole way through.
There was one thing as well that I was sort of going to talk about before we get into this one. The players are still just getting ready. It's in regards to, I guess, the tank players, you know, with XQQ, he's so stand out there that it's quite easy, I think, for SunSister to really work out, you know, who they should be, I guess, defending, you know, like the likes of their Diva player, their Reinhardt player and things like that. They know when XQQ needs help and they're really, I guess, willing to sort of help him out. It's just when, I guess, those flanking characters and those players from Machi are really going to try to put that punishment on XQQ. We sort of saw it last night, you know, you take Zonda out, you win. You know, it's going to be this. I feel like it's going to be a very similar tale here. You know, if SunSister can defend XQQ, they might be safe. But I mean, coming up into that, other than that, I don't think if they can't defend XQQ, it's where they're going to get punished.
Oh, I mean, also as well, in SunSister's last match against Flash Wolves, right, one of the biggest losses that they had was on one of the maps on Control, on Lijiang Tower. It was specifically Night Market. And XQQ was so busy 1v1ing Bacon Jack where he wasn't losing, but Bacon Jack wasn't winning. I mean, they were just sort of busy with each other, not having an effect on the rest of the game. Now, that's great for Bacon Jack because the rest of his team, they're fantastic. They can still win the rest of the match. But SunSister, like I've said basically this entire segment, relies so heavily on XQQ that if he's off busy dancing around another Tracer on Bacon Jack, then suddenly his team's biggest strength is gone and not a factor in the next fight. So it definitely shows that SunSister rely on him a lot, and if a team can deal with XQQ, then surely they're just going to win the rest of the game. They're going to win every team fight.
One thing as well with Machi, we just were talking about this before we went live, just before, was about how they're sort of trying to switch up some of their player roles there.
Yeah.
And I mean, who do you sort of want to outline in that, in regards to, you know, switching up these player roles here? Who's sort of like stepping up in regards to Machi now, which really, I guess, helped them get that win last night against Flash Wolves? Because we talked about, did Flash Wolves play badly or did Machi play well?
A lot of people are going to sit back and say Flash Wolves played badly or made a lot of mistakes. But even if Flash Wolves made a few mistakes during that match, you've still got to look at it from the standings, from the table, right? This is Machi Esports, 6th place team, only beating the Japanese teams in the first round, and they still beat Flash Wolves. And even with a few mistakes, that's something that really shouldn't happen, right? I mean, it was a 3-2. It was still rather close, but I still think Machi would have had to step it up, right? They definitely upped their skill. They definitely played a whole lot better than we saw in the first week, because Flash Wolves, even with mistakes here and there, would still be, on paper, a very hard team to beat for Machi, right? But they still won. They still won that series. So while a lot of people are going to sit back saying, oh, Flash Wolves just played badly, I don't think that's the case. They might not have played optimally, but Machi would have had to play out of their mind to beat Flash Wolves, and that's what happened.
Well, I feel like there's obviously maybe some more internal communication issues going on there as well, because, you know, they have Zonda, you know, they definitely have one of the best Pharaoh players in the tournament, and I think they got full held on Nimbani just by a Torbjorn.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't all just Torbjorn, but I think Pixie mentioned, you know, Torbjorn is the new meta now. A lot of teams are sort of running that a lot more prevalently, I guess, in this OPC tournament than we've sort of seen beforehand. So it is quite a surprise with some of these Asian teams, I feel. Is it because Torbjorn's so good, do you feel, or is it because these players don't really know how to deal with it just yet?
The thing about players definitely know how to deal with it.
In regards to, I guess, the compositions they're running.
Yeah, but the thing about Torbjorn is that if you don't manage to break through or at least get a lot of kills on the first fight, Torbjorn's going to start stacking up armor, which just makes the next fight even harder. Usually you lose the first fight and suddenly you're just a little bit behind on your ultimate charge. But you lose the first fight to a Torbjorn, suddenly half their team has armor. That could include a Mercy, Ana, Lucio, those 3 targets with an extra 75 armor. That's so hard to kill. That's so much harder to kill. I mean, they're sitting at 275 health with that armor sitting on top of them. That's so much harder for a Pharah to kill, because suddenly it's not so much easier for you to hit one shot and then you're flanking like a Tracer or a Genji to come in and clean it up. They're sitting on much higher health. It's not so easy for them to clean up. So again, it's all about that first fight. A lot of teams can break through the Torbjorn on defense, but it's got to come down to that first fight. Otherwise, it's like trying to cap the second point on an assault map, right? You've got to do it on the first one, otherwise it's so much harder.
Well, no Torbjorn going to be seen in map number 1, I feel. It's going to be Lijiang Tower. And Machi do pick that. I'm surprised, actually, that they go with the Lijiang Tower.
I mean, I'm still not surprised, but as I was saying
I guess
before,
it is the fan favorite, the player favorite. Sort of pick every single time. You know, if you don't get Oasis, it's going to be Lijiang Tower.
Yeah.
It's very little Ilios, I guess, being picked, unless you're Fireball.
Yeah, Fireball pick Ilios.
Unless you're Fireball,
it, right?
then you want that to be your little special child, I suppose.
Aputo's playground.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They love that one.
I mean, they want to make it their own. But talking about Lijiang Tower, right, while I said that Machi could throw a spanner in the works and take away a map that SunSister is comfortable on, Machi is still comfortable on Lijiang Tower as well. And while I was talking about how XQQ is going to be great on Control Center because he can play McCree, and we've seen that it's definitely one of his signature champions, there's still 2 other maps, right? And as we were talking about, the Pharah battle is definitely going to come into play when they go into the Gardens map. Most teams seem to be running Pharahs there. And also, the team that tends to lose the first fire battle usually starts swapping it out. Says, look, if we're not going to win that first fire battle, we're just going to have to go with something else. And half the time teams start doing that, and that alone sets you so much further back on ultimate charge once again and puts you on the back foot. And that is something that SunSister has struggled with throughout a lot of the tournament. But ever since XQQ came onto the team, they've been a whole lot better at that. They have lost the point to Flash Wolves, to Blank, and they've actually come back and taken it, and it hasn't seemed like those teams have been handing it over because they've run out of ults and suddenly, okay, we've got to give the point over so that we can come back with ults to take it again and win. It was actually SunSister just winning those team fights. So they have got a whole lot better at that. So I'd like to see them pull that out against Machi, because if they can do that against Flash Wolves, against Blank, then surely they can pull it off against Machi.
Yeah, so like when we've sort of seen, I guess, these moments of brilliance coming out from SunSister, you know, they've shown that they are one of these, you know, that the raw skills there. They are actually incredibly individually skilled players as a whole, but I still feel that there's a little bit of level of disconnect, especially when they try to play aggressively. When they're forced to play defensively, they do play very well, especially around XQQ, trying to keep them alive and things of the sort. But when they have to, you know, they have to really go for the push and they have to get aggressive, I feel like there's a lot of level of disconnect between, I guess, the tank players, the support players, and, you know, with the Lucio change as well. There's a big, I saw actually a big sort of video about it, about how now Lucio, his positioning and who he actually decides to go with on certain flanks, or if he's going to play defensively, that's now a huge decision-making process in itself, and Lucio's no longer, I guess, the weakest player on your team now. Players
you actually have to put someone good on it.
People are actually saying, you know, you can put your best player on Lucio now, and that's what you actually really want to be, I guess, doing with him, because you want to be sort of using him to his, I guess, his full advantage. And I feel the skill cap now on Lucio is extremely high. And in regards to SunSister, I just feel like there's a little bit of level of disconnect when they go to, I guess, prioritizing their targets and things of the like. So
in regards to how SunSister engage fights, a lot of their decisions are actually quite correct, right? They go in and they say, like, we've been tracking ultimates, we definitely have ultimate advantage here, and we can use these ults to win the fight. And you sit back and you look at that on paper and you think, look, that's actually a great decision, SunSister, go in, go win that fight. But then it's the execution, right? They'll go in and they say, okay, our fight revolves around this Graviton Surge, we'll clean it up and actually charge up our ultimates a little bit too. But suddenly it gets eaten by a defense matrix. And they're not calculating that, right? It's the execution of that. Say they've got a nano boost combo, and that's what's going to win them the next fight. Suddenly, again, defense matrix comes up and stops it. D.Va re-enabled.
Yeah, just I was about to say, it's good to know that D.Va's actually pickable here in this current patch they're playing.
D.Va very good at shutting down a lot of ults. Very, very precise on the timing for some Gravitons, but nano boost, tactical visor, very, very easy to shut down. Just fly at the soldier, hold right click.
Well, we're just still waiting for the players to get ready here. Should be in any second now. I guess any sort of final points you want to go over before we get into this one?
So, I mean, as I said at the top of the match, last week, even before last night, I would have said Machi are going to win these matches. But after their performance last night against Flash Wolves, SunSister have almost no hope in this match. I mean, there's a lot that they can do, and what they're going to have to do is execute these team fights a lot more cleanly. But that's going to be super hard against Machi.
Well, we're right into this here, and Kant going to be taken down extremely early into this one. And None is going to be having to fall back here a little bit as well, wait for the rest of the team to get themselves back in position. DCR1 and Kiyomi up on the other side, managing to pick themselves up a couple now, moving in for some kills. SunSister losing their support very early into this one, and now Machi answered back with the call. The point is now unlocked. It is fallen SunSister's way, but it looks like Machi should be able to push them off, just having superior hero pools left on the point here.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the numbers here, and SunSister, they got a little bit closer to capping it, but it's the full cap that you actually need, right? Now, this first team fight was actually quite even, but the one that got the most damage done during that was Nonez and Kant. So they're both going to have their ultimates ready. In fact, they've already got a nano boost ready to go with that. They can use that if they want to win the next team fight. What they should do, though, is try and save these ultimates, try and win a team fight simply with Kant, and throwing a pulse bomb onto one target, taking him out at the start of the fight. I mean, if Kiyomi can kill the fire out of this guy, that's great as well, but I mean, it's going to be all revolving around that pulse bomb. If they have to use the nano blade combo, I think that might be a little bit too much.
It's going to be Nadal switching over to the Ana here, see what he can get done with that, see if they can keep the SunSister team with the power of friendship alive. Nano Boost going to be coming in onto DCR1 as he jumps up in the back line, almost managing to find Elu, but it's going to be Nonez being able to finish him off right there with a nice reflect on the Helix rocket there, and now these swishier players on the SunSister team are just getting ripped apart here by the front line of Machi. Nothing left here on the point, no cap for them at all. And now they're going to be able to get the staggered kill here on the D.Va as well, most likely. And indeed they do. No mech for no talk, and that's going to be Machi holding this one down.
I think he actually managed to stay in it though. That's going to be a lot of hit points healed back up for SunSister as well. But the big thing is SunSister, Zetman uses Primal Rage during that, which is when you're trading ults into a fight where you're likely going to lose, not the greatest decision. So again, a bit of decision making there from SunSister, a little bit incorrect, but now they're committing ults into
sound barrier from both sides coming in there. A little bit of preemptive casting from me there before. Here comes the Dragon Blade. Needs to pick this kill up here in the back line and does indeed find it onto Night Owl. So big support going down there for the side of SunSister, but they are managing to find the support on the side of Machi themselves here. So it's going to be all on these frags, and XQQ coming in with a barrage there, picking up a double, doing huge work here on the fire. Self-destruct going to be on the point as well. Will it be able to find anything? Not at all. It is as XQQ takes no talk out without his mech up there. SunSister keeping it alive just as Machi re 86%.
So Machi made the decision there, look, we're going to use ultimates to try and win the fight, try and hold the point. However, again, it comes down to execution. The biggest thing was Nonez using Dragon Blade, no nano boost, and he was also at about 75 health. That's very, very easy to kill, and that's exactly what happened. You only got one kill, couldn't reset, and then Winston just sat near him holding right click.
I mean, it was a big kill there from the side of Machi actually to pick up Night Owl on the Ana very early, but SunSister obviously answering back to their call as well. You know, managing to pick that support up really early. And look at Mollis just cleaning up right now on the point. Didn't even need the tack, did he?
No, he didn't.
No,
but he's getting closer to it. I mean, he's 50% of the way, but they're definitely going to need that. Remember, they're only sitting at 37%, right? They've still got to win quite a lot more fights. The way they're playing a little more conservatively with their ults, they won that fight without using any ults, right? That's the exact track that SunSister need to be on. And in fact, they've now stabilized because DCR1, no, he didn't actually use his ult during that fight. So Machi didn't use any ults either. So they're sitting about even. But Nonez, because he uses ult before, doesn't have
nano boost though coming in onto both sides here. Zetman going to be all over Nonez. Does manage to find him here. Couple of kills now coming up for the side of SunSister. Can't manage to find that kill on Night Owl again. They are taking this Ana out early into the fight, but can they manage to follow up with that? Ristia still being able to find a little bit more there for the side of Machi. Both supports there still keeping themselves up until Ristia falls down on the side of Machi, but no damage there for them at all, and SunSister still keeping themselves in control of the point.
And in these last few fights, it's got to be the tanks for SunSister that are doing a fantastic job. Zetman getting a lot of damage done. In fact, a lot more value with the nano boost than DCR1 got. And also on Odinkin, right? And this guy, he's always fantastic at shutting down ultimates, shutting down just, that was close.
Very
but
close.
Watch Odinkin during the next fight. He will constantly be in the right place with defense matrix every single time.
Goes for the knockoff there, doesn't manage to land it on DCR1 there, gets put to sleep as well, so great sleep dart there coming in from Night Owl. Mollis getting taken down early on into this battle here. But look at this, SunSister coming up with another pair of kills. No Talk managing to get himself a trade here. Now Nonez with the sword out, looking to hack and slash up here onto Elu. Does find him and managing to take down the Night Owl as well. So both supports now down on the side of SunSister. But Odinkun flexing indeed up on the point, trying to keep this one alive here. SunSister forcing it into overtime as well. And he does manage to find the kill there as well onto DCR1. So that's going to be SunSister picking up the first map here on Lijiang.
Now, something I also said before the broadcast even begun to you was, if Machi dropped some maps to SunSister here, that's going to explain something. That's going to say maybe last night against the Flash was a fluke. But I've got to give a lot of credit to SunSister there. I mean, short of the few fights that they lost where some of their ults weren't used pretty effectively, Machi fell prey to a lot of that as well. In fact, a lot of it was on Nonez. His Dragon Blades seemed to be either too late or just when he was on low health, had no backup. Nano boosts were never used with him to combo it as well, which means that's a very squishy target that everyone is going to have their eyes on when that Dragon Blade's out. So every single time Dragon Blade came out, he got maybe one kill, but he died soon after, and you need to get more value out of that with such a high impact ultimate like Dragon Blade.
Well, he hasn't listened to you at all, mate, and he's staying on the Genji, it seems.
He should still play it. He's still great at the hero. He just needs to fix that one issue right now. XQQ on the McCree, big factor here is going to be able to shut down the flankers. Nonez can't. Gonna have to be really careful around this boy.
But they do have Odinkun is going to be playing the Hog this time, going to be trying to sit behind Zetman's shield there, and he does find that pick on Nonez as well. Flashbang landing right there. And eats the shotgun there as well. It's going to be Kant falling down. SunSister looking in good control of this first exchange. And now they should be able to take Kiyomi down as well straight after this one.
And I feel like Machi needed to recognize what SunSister are running. That's a big death ball comp. You need to get into the backline as quickly as you can before they're set up on the point, because by then, suddenly you've got trouble diving them because there's a hook, there's a flashbang to get there, and your frontline DPS aren't going to be able to shoot past Reinhardt's shield. So as soon as SunSister set themselves up on the point, they had already got the advantage. Kiyomi needs to go big with his tactical visor. There's no nano boost to go with it though. Are they going to use Transcendence in this fight? I think that would be a good idea to keep Kiyomi safe, because also, you've got to remember, there's no D.Va on SunSister this time.
Oh, but DCL1 getting a little bit too frisky there up in the back lines, gets taken down. Nonez managing to find one early into that one. It's going to be the support as the tactical visor comes in, and it's going to be finishing off the last couple of players here. XQQ going to be falling as well. Kant should be able to pick up the skill onto Mollis, and indeed he does. And Machi picking themselves the cap up after that. Very good fight with not much to work with at all. They did actually commit the Transcendence as well, so 2 ultimates used.
Yeah, so I mean, like, they did technically use more ultimates, but they captured the point. Now, the big thing is going to be whether they can actually hold it. They've got a big diving composition here. They need to be the ones aggressing. That's exactly what they're doing here. But SunSister using the speed boost just to run on the point. They're entrenched.
Nice positioning there coming up from the side of SunSister, not taking that fight when they're at the disadvantage, and it's showing right now as they pick themselves up 3. Now Nonez going to have to go big with this Dragon Blade. Again, all over Night Owl up in the back lines there. Can he find himself a Lucio? No, he can't. He's so elusive right here. XQQ as well managing to keep himself alive using the wall to his advantage, and SunSister picking themselves the cap up yet again. Machi only getting 25% out of that one.
And it's the power of the Death Ball comp. Like I said, once it's entrenched, it's so much harder to deal with when you're running triple DPS, 2 of them being dive. Kiyomi isn't able to get a lot of value down because Zetman constantly has his shield up. So once again, you have to get SunSister off the point. Machi, every time they've done that, have had to use more ultimates. They don't have tactical visor this time. They will have sound barrier, but no DPS ult, and that's what they need to take this comp down.
Yeah, they're going to be walking into the 5 here on the side of SunSister. Deadeye going to be coming in. Nonez taking out Night Owl very early into this one. Finds the flashbang hit, but nothing with the Deadeye, so going to be quite disappointing there for the side of SunSister, as Mollis going to be hitting the tactical visor now. Gets booped straight out the window, so again, manages to pick up a pair there, but Kant just going on an absolute ripper up here in the back lines, just tearing apart the side of SunSister. XQQ managing to make himself back onto the point, but with no one else left alive, Machi going to be picking themselves up a cap here as well. SunSister on 90% though. Machi still have a little bit of time to go.
Machi have to play differently this time. They cannot let SunSister just sprint onto the point. They need to get aggressive immediately. Watch how SunSister run. It's all together, all as 6 members. They need to get DCR1 in there immediately, but he's already at half health.
Oh, DCR1 very sneaky there, finding Night Owl as he tried to back out around the corner here. And look at this, DCR1 with the triple here. Great stuff from Machi as they push extremely aggressively. Don't let SunSister get any positioning at all out of that fight.
And they only committed Transcendence to that. Machi sitting nice and comfortable, right? SunSister, they're coming up to a few ults of their own, right? But only Nano Boost, right? What are you going to combo that with? XQQ and his Deadeye? This is an ability that's very easy to dodge, so it needs to come out as a surprise to get those surprise kills, right? Deadeye is, again, very easy to dodge, especially if you've got a Winston, you just hide underneath that barrier as well. No D.Va, so that's going to make it a little bit harder to deal with. So what I think we're going to see is probably a Nano Boost on the Reinhardt, right? You don't have great targets to throw it on. Deadeye is just too risky, right? That's 2 ultimates on one of the easiest ones to A, shut down, or B, just dodge, just hide. And suddenly, Nano Boost, Deadeye, completely gone. 2 big tools that SunSister need to retake the point. So Nano Boost, very likely, going to go over to the Reinhardt. Zetman's going to need to use it to big effect.
I mean, I'd hope so there, because I feel like the last Deadeye, I'd say it was a big contributing factor actually to why they sort of lost the point off that. You know, him coming in with the Deadeye there. The positioning coming up from Machi was extremely good. You know, they sort of got him to overcommit onto the point, you know, have to peek around the corner fully there. And while that was happening, you know, the fight around the backside there, a couple of SunSister players got taken out, and it was very easy for them to deal with XQQ once everyone else was taken down.
Yeah, I mean, this is a dive comp you're going up against, right? And there's so many little nooks and crannies. You can run through the doorways, jump through the windows, just to get out of the line of sight of that Deadeye. And you can actually see, I believe it was Kant on the Tracer, just moving in and out of that doorway just to bait the Deadeye, and that's exactly what happened. You saw XQQ try and use the ult, trying to get that sneaky kill, but Cat was already behind the wall, wasn't going to fall for that, and completely wasted it. Now, there is value in the zoning that it brings. It is going to keep people out of the room, but when you've got a Winston bubble in the way, and let's not forget as well, sound barrier was active during that, so it's going to take a lot longer for that Deadeye to lock on, so he got no value out of it. It did make it a little bit awkward, but this is an ultimate that you need to actually get value out of it, right? Like proper value, so that you can win a team fight. And while I believe it was the only ult they used during that fight, that's not something you want to have happen, right? Committing an ultimate to a fight where either you don't win or you don't force out a huge amount of ultimates out of the enemy team is never going to be worth it unless it's some very unique situation where you're trying to
Like
force
a
out
positioning one, or
right.
trying to delay them from touching the point, taking it into overtime, yada,
Exactly,
yada, yada, yada.
right. So the fact is, probably better to save it for the next fight. I get the idea behind it, but Machi this time were just too on the ball, you know, with the sound barrier and also can't just moving in and out of that doorway. Really just played with XQQ's mind there and just basically wasted the Deadeye. So if it's going to be a factor in this next fight, and if they use Nano Boost during it, then it needs to get value. You can't throw Nano Boost. I mean, it's one thing to zone people with Deadeye, but to have Nano Boost on it too, you have to get kills.
Well, we are just waiting for the pause coming through from the players just now while we sort of talk about a little bit of trouble I feel SunSister's in now on map number 2 here. You know, they did commit a lot of ultimates at that last fight. They are slightly behind now as well. You mentioned that they've only got a Nano Boost to work with, you know, probably into their next fight, which is going to be used on a Reinhardt. So Reinhardt has to come up extremely big and find himself, I guess, a lot of damage here. If Machi just play, you know, a nice little speed boost there and just back themselves off the point or away from the Reinhardt, they're going to be able to sort of deal with the big, I guess, crucial ultimates that SunSister have left to work with very, very easily. So positioning is going to be core for this next fight, and I feel that that's one thing SunSister have shown us a lot of strength on. That was one thing that I'd sort of mentioned I felt was a weakness for them, but they definitely have sort of fixed that, especially here on Lijiang Tower. They've shown that they know where they should be, like, I guess, where they should be positioning with their big sort of death ball brawly comp there.
It's going to be all about how they approach the main courtyard, right? The first time, in the most recent fight, we saw them go through just the main entrance, right? And Machi were all on that, getting in there with the cleave damage from
all
Winston.
over it.
But the big difference is they had Transcendence then, so basically no one was going to die. There's very little one-shot potential short of Deadeye or Roadhog on the side of SunSister, so Transcendence is basically going to keep absolutely everyone alive, basically immortal during that fight. But without that, suddenly you run into the risk of Roadhog getting insane value in those close quarters if you try to run in there. If he gets a hook onto DCR1, suddenly that's going to be him shut down. We'll see how they approach it.
Well, they're right back into this one. Going to be Nona is going to be hitting the Dragon Blade to start us
no
off there.
way.
Is that a big boop? Is anyone going to be dying? He does manage to find the kill onto Zetman, so that should be all that they need here, Machi, for them to pick up this cap back off the side of SunSister now, as they are dropping very, very quickly. SunSister getting to the overtime, but now Machi in control.
So what I believe happened there, just you know, as we were talking, was SunSister sprinted onto the point and actually capped it right. Now, that does buy a few crucial seconds, but now SunSister actually have to win a fight to win the game here. If Khan gets a kill here, that's going to be huge. But SunSister, they just need to win one more.
Pulse Bomb finds nothing here. DCL1 going extremely primal raging over there in the corner and getting a lot of work done with that. It's going to be the boot from Restia to actually pick this one up. Mollis finding that kill onto the Zenyatta there. And now it's going to be XQQ switching up to the Tracer, getting a lot of work done here as well onto Kiyomi in the back lines. But look at this. Machi's still managing to push all these SunSister players back off here. And I don't think that they're going to be able to recap this one here. Not at all. They're getting extremely close, but these Machi players are out in force, keeping it alive there. They are in control as well. Overtime ticking down. Who on the side of SunSister can get back onto this one? And in literally a millisecond there, that's all was needed to keep it alive. But, oh my goodness, Machi take map number 2.
So SunSister show promise playing in that death ball composition. I mean, the few fights that they played out correctly went perfectly for them, right? Sprinting onto the point. Even one of the fights they lost, they actually took the point away from them. And short of actually getting knocked off the edge entirely, which is the risk that you run going on the balcony way, then they might have actually won those fights. But during them, they lost Reinhardt. Zetman went flying off the edge. There was constant risk from Restia just throwing them off the edge as well. I mean, that Soundwave knockback, it's not like a 5-6 second cooldown. It's constantly up. So that is the risk that you run when you try to sprint just around the enemy team to get onto the point. And it works sometimes, but oh boy, it goes horribly when you get knocked off. Difference on Control Center though is that there's not a huge balcony there. I mean, there is, but you don't run that way.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how SunSister come up with an answer to that. Looks like Machi sort of figured them out halfway through there. And, you know, SunSister showed, I guess, a lot of promise there. You know, they're very early sort of, you know, falling back from some fights, you know, repositioning very quickly. But now, it sort of looked like, again, they were a little bit, you know, confused, a little bit frantic there at the end, didn't really know what they should be doing, and they were just getting dived on left, right, and center. You know, their tanks getting dropped out first, which is something that you never really want to see, obviously. And I guess Machi were just really using the environment and their positioning just to far better advantage.
Yeah. I think the thing is they were too scared of the huge amount of cleave damage that they would take if they just ran through the front door, right? Winston was going to get a lot of damage on you. You can shut that down with one Roadhog hook. Just hook him in and you do 85% of his health with one shotgun shot, maybe even kill him if you aim it properly. And the rest of the team is going to be there to back you up. But in any case, we're going to be on control center, and I think SunSister are actually going to be the favored ones here. Running 3 tanks here, XQQ going to be doing all the damage.
Well, they're going to be coming into the 3-tank setup there from Machi as well, making that quick change to the Diva there. It's going to be Kant playing him there, but Nonez going to be opening this one up onto Mollis. DCR1 flexing, finding himself a kill there onto the Lucio as well. Now Machi looking so aggressive here at the start. XQQ going to have no one to help him out here. Can they find that delayed kill onto him? He's actually just going to suicide himself off the edge just to not make this one take a little bit too longer. And Machi going to be picking up the first cap here.
And a lot of that comes from 2 things, right? The sleep onto Mollis there, just shutting him out of the fight, no defense matrix, and also Nonez getting resets. This guy was swift striking all over the place, and you saw near the end he was starting to shut down XQQ, who could have no effect on him. He was too scared to use the flashbang from fear of it being reflected.
Well, it looks like they're going to be starting to get some charge now on some of these tanks here on the side of SunSister. We'll be getting close to the Earthshatter, maybe a nano boost coming through on the likes of Z-Man.
Whoa, what a flashbang.
Very bold indeed. Oh, what an absolute shot right there. It's going to be XQQ flicking Nonez out of the sky. Odin Kun going to be able to follow up on this one. And now Kant going to be getting forced back slowly here. It's going to be No Talk, though, wanting to have a little bit of a chat himself. Throwing out the Graviton Surge with that nano boost on, but doesn't find any kills just yet. Going to be a sound barrier as well committed for the side of Machi. They are managing to push SunSister back now, when it looked like it was all coming up SunSister. The self-destruct from Kant there as well to finish this one off. And Machi holding onto this, XQQ with a little bit of a consolation kill, but absolutely nothing and no ground and no cap time for SunSister.
So SunSister still didn't use too much during that fight, right? They did use their nano boost, but look at what they've got right now. Odinkin especially coming up to that Graviton, but remember what I was talking about. It cannot be eaten by defense matrix. Kant also needs to recognize this on Machi. He needs to realize, look, we haven't seen a Graviton Surge in a very long time, in fact at all, so I need to be on top of Odinkin. I need to be making sure I block this Graviton.
Oh, Earthshatter picking up a couple in the back lines there, as Nonez going to be finishing them off right now. Doesn't even need to commit the Dragon Blade into this fight. And a little bit of frantic play coming out there from SunSister. Didn't really know what hit them as the Earth shattered beneath them. And it's going to be Machi just cleaning this one up very easily. They're on 90% now, and SunSister going to have to move very quickly to get themselves alive in this overtime.
They need to sprint to the point, and their whole team is not going to be there. Zetman literally has to charge onto the point to keep them in this. Are they even going to make it? They're not even there yet. No, okay, they do get into overtime, but is it going to be enough?
Graviton Surge coming in right now. Do they have the damage, though, to find any kills in between? Zetman will find one. It's going to be XQQ picking up another, but the counter Graviton Surge from No Talk and the blade coming out now from Nonez. These two are just cleaning up the side of SunSister and their hopes of winning map number 3 as well. It's going to be just Mollis trying to keep this alive with the mech there. Nothing can be found. Overtime ticking down, and Machi picked themselves up their second map here, leading the series 2-1.
And that was a completely different game, right? It felt like Machi just suddenly turned everything on and shut down SunSister at every opportunity, right? XQQ was struggling to find value. Yes, he got great results in the second fight, especially the air shot. That was fantastic. But also, he could not do a whole lot short of that, right? He constantly had Nonez on top of him, and Nonez just mind games, right? Constantly not deflecting so that XQQ would be too scared to flashbang, right? But then he suddenly turns deflect on and he's safe. Nonez was keeping XQQ pinned down for a lot of that. And then another thing, I've got to praise the Earth Shatters coming out from Machi as well, right? Constantly connecting. Zetman was not able to keep up, and a lot of it also resulted in SunSister throwing ults on a fight that they were going to lose because so many people were in the Earth Shatter.
Well, Odinkin going to be going back onto his hog here, seeing if he can find some hooks. No Talk going to be running the Zenyatta again. That worked out extremely well for Machi last time. Kant right up in the front lines here, but the hook comes in there onto DCR1, and Odinkin going to be opening this one up. Now Kant up in the back lines. It's going to be a double kill there for Ressia, just getting boops for days, knocking 2 off the map here, and Machi should be able to get this first cap very cleanly. Odinkin picking up a pair there, but it's not going to be enough.
Doesn't matter, right? I mean, Machi, once more, they're punishing SunSister for running along the balcony, running too close to it, right? that Soundwave knockback is on such a low cooldown, and then you've also got to remember that DCR1, once he starts getting Primal Rage, that's going to be a threat. SunSister need to start considering how dangerous it is to run this way.
Watch out for Restia. He's trying to put some more to bed. Doesn't really find anything there, but it's going to be known as. Got the Dragon Blade. Gets exploded, though, by the Helix Rocket coming in from Mollis. Now, Kant is going to need to go big right here and take these SunSister players down. Looking for the Discord Orb target. Does manage to pick up one there, Kiyomi, to finish him off. But SunSister are finding many kills of themselves here. It's quite a neck-and-neck fight now, but Mollis looking to clean it up, and indeed he does with the broomstick, and SunSister back in control.
Yeah, I mean, they've got double hit scan here. It's looking pretty good. Once more, a death ball composition. Machi, still fantastic at diving on top of them, right? But remember, SunSister, they're now entrenched on the point. They've got to remember, they can't really play near that balcony. Machi have all the tools to get back up if they fall off. They've got Genji, they've got recall on Tracer. But SunSister don't have a lot of those options, right? McCree and Soldier, they can't fly, they can't double jump, so Machi have the freedom to play around that balcony.
And you say that there, Mollis and Night Owl straight out onto the balcony as well. I love to see a sneaky little Restia just come sliding around the side here looking for a boot, but it's going to be a Winston jumping right on top of them, but he pays with his life. DCR1 just absolutely evaporated there. It's going to be known as reflecting a whole hog back, getting a nice little consolation kill, but the Nano Visor coming in from Mollis here, just wiping up Machi yet again. SunSister holding on to this one, now on 45%, leading Machi here on map number 4.
Looking a whole lot better for SunSister, right? But they're only 50% of the way there, and they used half of their ultimates, right? And Zetman still not towards his one yet. He should get it during this next fight, but it's going to be all on the fire strikes that he gets. But remember last game, he wasn't getting the most fantastic Earth Shatters. And this time, Machi, DCR1, he has his Primal Rage. He needs to use it before he gets hooked, though.
Oh, Transcendence coming in now as well. XQQ going for that counter Deadeye. Can he find anything? He does find a double there, but it was the double Pulse Bomb from Kant as well to pick up a couple of these SunSister players, and Kant now picking himself up a third. Mollis still going to work up here.
Balcony.
Out on the balcony. It's all going to be on Mollis. He should drop as well, and indeed he does. Machi answer back and cap the point out now. SunSister on 76%, so Machi have a little bit of time to work with here.
So once again, I'd like to see SunSister try and consider an option that's not just the balcony. And if they do, they need to be keeping eyes on Restia constantly. And also remembering, we haven't seen DCR1 use his Primal Rage for a very long time. And this is the difference, right? They're going in the front door.
Well, Kant going to be taken down very early there by XQQ, finding the shot onto him, but a little bit of a trade kill there from Machi now. Going to be DCR1, should be dropping after this, but no, actually makes his way out alive. Tactical Visor now coming in from Kiyomi, finding one player, and it's going to be Night Owl. Can't even kill him, though. Going to be forced to retreat here, so a little bit of an overcommitment coming in from the side of Machi. SunSister may be able to answer back.
And if you are SunSister, that's a great fight there. Sure, you lose one guy, lose the fight, but you baited out ultimates. Both DCR1 and Kiyomi. No Tactical Visor is huge right now. Primal Rage as well allows them to take the balcony route.
Well, Zetman come in, dropping the hammer there. Unsure about how much he found with it, but the Tac Visor again with the Nano Boost from Mollis picking himself up a double. Kant still needs to be dealt with. They still haven't found him just yet, but Mollis wiping up the rest of his team. It doesn't really matter. A lone Tracer surely can't do this on her own. SunSister now back in control.
The question now we've got to ask is, did SunSister use too much to get that point? They got it quite handily and with few casualties as well, but what ults do they have left? Deadeye is a pretty good one, but once again, it's very easy to hide behind it. They don't have Nanoboost, they don't have Tactical Visor, and they don't have a Roadhog.
Oh, not when Kiyomi will take him down like that. Mollis dropping extremely low. He's taken out of this one as well, and Kiyomi just going to work up here, trying to find XQQ up in the back line. He's going to have DCR1 here to back him up as well. They don't need to even finish these ones off. It's going to be Kant to do the work for them. And now Machi get themselves the recap there, saving the overtime, and with 99% themselves in just a split second here. This is neck and neck on map number 4. And they're just going to get it there. No one's going to be able to even keep it alive for the side of SunSister. And Machi, they do it.
That last fight, SunSister totally could have won it. They definitely had advantage there as well. I mean, they had plenty of odds to work with. They just had to defend one more fight. That was all they needed. But instead, even though they got value out of Deadeye, which really should have won the fight for them, they just got dived on the backline, and Mollis couldn't get value on the Genji either. So, unfortunately, sorry, not Mollis, the other one. One on SunSister. That is Mollis. But in any case, in any case, didn't get value.
I was paying very, very high level of attention to the play of the game there, you know.
The most important
thing of the game, obviously.
Just knocking two people off the edge. Actually, it was the Dragon Blade, but
yeah, it was the Dragon Blade.
I felt the double knockoff wasn't.
Well, it's obviously because he didn't get as many points. You know, the Dragon Blade, because he just kind of gave them a little bit of a nudge as he sort of dashed past them. He was like, yeah, I'll take some credit for those ones. That was me. That was me as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was the double boog, let's be honest here.
Yeah, real play of the game, right?
Me and Everett have talked about this, you got the play of the game, then you got the play of the game.
Play of the game.
But yeah, Nonez definitely turned up on the Genji there.
Nonez was a little bit on and off in that.
I guess in his map number 1, pretty questionable, but as they sort of went on there, the chemistry started flowing there. They sort of started finding the right amount of each sort of chemical and just, pouring them in the test tube. And I guess the combination between them there was working out really, really well, the way that they only really used 2 ultimates a lot of the time for a lot of fights. There was never really big overcommitments coming in from the side of Machi, maybe once or twice, but we saw it coming out from the side of SunSister a lot. They'd overcommit to a lot of these fights. They'd sort of drop fights that they didn't need to. They'd drop fights that they didn't need to drop. They'd try to win fights they could have dropped, things like that. Whereas, Machi very composed, and I guess once Nonez felt a little bit more comfortable and maybe the communications were a little bit more clear to him, I felt like, his execution of his Dragon Blades were a lot better as the match went on.
Yeah, I mean, first few maps, you saw him ulting during, when he was at like 50 health, right? He's just going to get shut down. Doesn't have a nano boost.
He can reflect.
Oh yeah, just reflect everything. Just reflect the Winston, which he died to. Why didn't he do that? Gosh, maybe you should sub in for him, bro.
Probably, bro. Probably,
yeah,
I feel
I think
like.
so. You'd turn on the reflect and suddenly you'd be Mace Windu just reflecting the lightning back at
I
him.
still feel like, how he can sort of reflect the Reinhardt. I don't really think that would be a thing. I don't think that would be a thing.
Fire strike?
No, like when he swings his hammer.
No, you can't reflect that.
You can't. I thought that, I'm pretty sure it reflects the hammer.
No.
Does it not?
No. Reinhardt will just cave your skull in.
I thought, okay, that's good then. I was about to say, I thought it reflects the hammer.
It's, one of them is Roadhog's hook. It doesn't get technically reflected, like he doesn't go back and hook himself.
I mean, it's auto attack, right?
Reinhardt.
Yeah.
No, it does not get reflected.
All right, okay, so it doesn't get reflected, supposedly.
Yeah, because like you said, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I was about to be like, that would not make any sense to me, right? Like,
but Fire Strike is a little bit.
No,
weird,
that's understandable though.
I mean, it's a huge line of fire coming at you.
So, I mean, he's the master of, the dragon. Like, he's just throwing. In Genji's eyes, he's like, oh, that's weak, mate. That's weak stuff. You want to see me throw this dragon at you? Have you seen this in a little cinematic?
I have seen the cinematic. Pretty good one.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I mean, why did you think he could reflect the hammer?
Bro, I swear that was a thing. I swear that was a thing. I don't know. I'm gonna check the chat. I'm gonna check something in the break here.
I mean, I'm gonna be really embarrassed if I'm wrong, but I'm so sure you do not reflect that. But let's talk about how Machi just 3-1'd SunSister. And also important to note, right, is this is outside of a match against Japan, the first time that SunSister has taken any kind of map. I mean, they didn't take the map, but they took one of the rounds on Lijiang Tower away from Machi. This is the first time they've done that against a team that's not in Japan, which is, Detonator Gold. That's the first time SunSister has done something like that. So that is something to talk about, right? SunSister are definitely still looking to improve, and it shows that they can go toe-to-toe with Machi, who, by the way, beat Flash Wolves, which means we might get a bit of Illuminati going on a little bit later with the triangle, but SunSister still have a few more rounds, right? At the very least, 2 more rounds to prove themselves, and after that showing, right, I think they've definitely got something to prove, especially with XQQ and how they performed most recently against Flash Wolves and Blank. Even though they lost, they still put up a great performance, and I think that they can definitely bring it to Machi. So on Hybrid, on Assault even, I think that SunSister still have a lot to prove.
They have definitely shown to me that they've been, I guess, one of the better, I guess, faster rate improving teams, if that makes sense.
By putting XQQ on?
Yes. So, I mean, like, there was this, like, oh, not very good, and sub this player in, and now we're extremely good. And
I mean, extremely good.
Well, extremely good comparatively to what we were before.
Extremely good, and if I stand up, I can like get Blank's rate up there.
Whoa, what bias?
Look,
bias.
It's not bias if that is literally the standings. Undefeated, okay?
Fair enough.
Look, I'm just saying what's on paper, okay? No. I'm not biased at all. There it is.
I know, there is the paper indeed. Well, they are all the way up there,
Yeah.
You do actually have to stand up to, use your levels of raising, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. But I mean, so you're right. I mean, SunSister, yes, they improved quite a lot. I would not say that they are looking extremely good compared to a lot of these other teams, because there's still a lot of mistakes, and it's still only,
oh yeah, definitely.
It's still only one player that's really standing out to me. Like, I mean, who are the other players on the team, right? I mean,
Well, Odin-kun, I think, had a little bit of he had a bit of a turn up in that game, I'd say.
I'm definitely underrating a lot of the players, obviously a little bit on purpose for dramatic flair.
Savage.
But to be fair to Odin-kun, like you said, he definitely turns up in a lot of the games as well. And in the OPZ, like I'd put him as like one of the top 3 divas in terms of actually doing his job and shutting down things like Soldier and McCree ults and even Farah's. He's always on top of those too. So Odin-kun definitely impressed me quite a lot. So, I mean, SunSister, I told you guys to do something like that, get someone that's not XQQ to impress me. Odin-kun, he's already impressed me, right, in previous rounds. So if you can start turning up more and actually blocking a lot more ults, which, you know, he has done, I definitely start rating him quite a lot higher as well. SunSister probably need to start doing that as a whole though, if they want to start challenging these teams above them.
Well, SunSister have just picked King's Row coming into map number 2 here. So this has been, I guess, the player favorite, you know, coming into this. I think teams feel quite confident when it comes to this map. It's really the fallback, and I think we've seen this a lot on map number 2 most of the time.
It's a cozy map.
The mean streets of King's Row.
Okay. Thematically, it's probably not a cozy map. I mean, it's probably cold.
It's probably cold as.
It's cold because it's in the middle of the night. There's graffiti everywhere. If you're an Omnic, you know, don't even think about going there, right? But
racist people in that business, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably not a cozy map thematically, but a lot of teams are comfortable playing on it, so a lot of them will pick it. And I feel like teams probably want to start branching out and getting a specialty, like, for example, Fireball have one with their Ilios pick. So a lot of these teams will be picking King's Row, but unless you're getting fantastic results on it, maybe it's time to start looking at another map, right? I mean, SunSister have yet to win on King's Row. I think it was the round that they lost against Detonator. I'll probably have to double check that, but they still haven't won on King's Row. But I want to talk about how they did against Flash Wolves on King's Row, right? They actually capped the first point on the first push, I believe, and also pushed the payload quite far. Now, I think they only had, in fact, actually, they got it to the end against Flash Wolves, and they had less than a minute left. In fact, maybe it was even during overtime, and Flash Wolves still steamrolled them during time bank, because of course they got it right to the end. But it shows that SunSister are capable. They are capable on the attack on this map. Can they defend on it though? And can they defend against Machi?
Well, Machi, I think, are a team that have really shown that they know how to figure out SunSister, especially, you know, in that control there. You know, SunSister came in, I feel, extremely hot, and I think it's going to be much of the same here. I think if SunSister can adapt, you know, throughout their offense and defense here, I do see both of these teams actually pushing it to the end and us going into time bank for this one. They do feel like they're going to be quite evenly matched here, but if Machi can hold them down on point number 1, I feel SunSister will not be able to do the same in this sort of, you know, prepared, you know, when you've got these team fights, which they are a lot more, I guess, easy to think out before you get into them.
Yeah, and the other thing about Hybrid, right, is that as the offense, you've got to open up with an attack when you're not 100% on the enemy team's composition. Yeah, you can throw a Sonic Arrow as Hanzo to get a gauge, but you're only really hitting half the team. But then again, if you manage to spot out something like a Roadhog, a McCree, especially a Reinhardt, suddenly you're starting to realize, okay, they're probably running Death Ball comp on defense, probably got a Soldier up on the balcony somewhere, and then you start looking at, okay, we've got to use these heroes to deal with that. If you don't hit anyone with a Sonic Arrow though, you're going in with some pretty blind information. The defending team can also recognize this is something that the offense can do, so we're going to hide our players that will give away what our composition is until they're actually facing us in the first fight. So there's a lot of advantage in what the defense can do on the first point, but it's only one fight, right? You go in, you lose one fight, and suddenly you can swap things up, but that does leave you a little bit behind in the ultimate race. One
thing I've sort of noticed is the team, like especially on the offensive side here, that manages to control, you know, the high ground there. If they do manage to get themselves up across the front gate, you know, high ground there into the hotel and sort of push their way up onto that platform there, you can see where the Soldier of XQQ is actually running to right now is going for that position. And if they manage to get, if they do run a sort of Soldier, or it's going to be known as actually on the Genji, so if they do manage to get him up there in the back lines and manage to push that Soldier out and the likes of XQQ, that's where they're going to be able to open this point up. If they don't deal with him up on the high ground there, it's going to be Kent actually trying to get himself up there. Not going to be opting for this, going to opt for the long route all the way around, and None is going to be up for the high ground here.
Yeah, 3 members up to commit against the Soldier. XQQ is going to have to jump down, if not outright die here.
And indeed they find him, and this is going to be the opening that Machi were looking for. managing to read SunSister like an open book there. Now, Kiyomi actually up on the high ground, so we'll get a lot of free time up here to do good damage for the side of Machi. Keeping your Zenyatta alive this easily is exactly what you want. And SunSister players dropping like flies here. Kiyomi finishing this one up, and that's going to be an easy first cap there for Machi.
And let's not forget as well, SunSister had basically zero vertical mobility, so once they lost the high ground, they had no way of contesting it. Now, losing XQQ at the very start of that was probably what sold it for Machi there, but, you know, for SunSister losing the point. But look, they're trying to contest this high ground once more, and it just shows how important it is. But they commit so many members up to deal with XQQ.
Well, SQQ actually keeping himself alive now, does have a bit of defense of his own, looking to get aggressive and push back in here, but he's eating a lot of the Tracer bullets there. Now with the Pulse Bomb up as well, if he did hang around, I think that would have been disastrous for him.
But what are they really getting out of that, right? They're contesting for this high ground while the payload's moving anyway, and even if they took it, yes, so what, right? Machi they've got D.Va, Winston, Genji, they can just go back and take the high ground anyway.
Oh, Pulse Bomb comes in there, doesn't find anything, but it's going to be the pistols just to finish off Zetman. No front line now up for the likes of SunSister as Night Owl falls down in the back line as well. Nonez and Kant doing a great job here. The flanking pair finding themselves a fair few as DCon will finish up Elu now with the Dragon Blade in hand as well. The Primal Rage and the Self-Destruct getting close to the two support ultimates as well. Machi looking good with this momentum here on the street phase.
And they're saving a lot of ultimates as well. Nonez, no Dragon Blade during that. Kant is the only one that threw out an ultimate during that. They're going to come up with 5 ultimates right now, and Kant almost sure to get his ult during the next fight. This payload is sure to go right into the 3rd checkpoint here. Expect Machi to go incredibly aggressive and maybe swap up the comp if they lose this fight, but are they going to lose this fight?
Probably not with that aggressiveness you were just talking about, as they push all the way back to the spawn here of SunSister, staggering out a couple of kills there as well. So we'll get a lot of free time to push the card here, especially in its point 3. It's extremely difficult, and look at this aggressiveness now coming up from the side of Machi. And do remember, this was SunSister's pick here, and they are getting absolutely walked over right now by the likes of Machi.
6 ults, and they still are holding them at the spawn.
Well, they're not even worried here. Pulse Bomb as well for Kant, already back up again. There comes the sound barrier. The Dragon Blade coming in from Nonez. Does manage to find the kill on XQQ just in the nick of time there. Picked up Mollis as well as counterpart Genji. Now Kant going to be all over Elu here. Almost gets booped off the edge. Very quick recall to keep himself alive here. And Machi approaching the point extremely quickly. 3.9 meters to go. Self-destruct now coming in. Manages to pick up a double. Odin Kun. This is going to be the clutch that SunSister need as well. Picks himself up a 3rd there, but Nonez is having none of that, and he's all over this. Mollis going to be making his way back to the point. These players are just trickling in here from the side of SunSister. Can they keep this up alive? 1.75 meters left to go. Nonez still says no, as well as he just cleans up the last of these players. The Winston drops down in the likes of Zetman. They pick up XQQ, and that's going to be all she wrote there. Machi all the way to the end with 4 minutes 28 left on the clock.
SunSister had their best chance at a defense there when they killed both healers with the self-destruct, and they still didn't manage to stabilize. That's absolutely incredible, right? And it's so based on the fact that Machi got to save so many of their ultimates during that entire push. I don't think they used anything except Pulse Bomb until right at the very end, where they were keeping them trapped in the spawn, and then they still had 3 ults to work with. They had Primal Rage to keep going with. That's, again, almost a 1,000 hit point heal, and when you're in that situation, sustain is something that you do need, because with both of your healers dead, you need some way of keeping alive, because every single kill does actually matter. But they managed to hold it with 4 people and still kill everyone because they had so many ults left.
I mean, the other thing as well, I guess they managed to sort of stagger the respawns of the side of SunSister quite easily there, I feel. Even when the self-destruct came in, you know, it was never sort of like 6 on 6 commit from them, was it? It was more they were going 3v6, 3v6, and then, you know, 2v6 and 1v6, primal, like, you know, Winston jump in, etc., etc. And I mean, there's not much you can really do at that point. Machi just showing an absolute, almost perfect attack there, I feel.
Nothing wrong with it. I mean, they did everything right. SunSister approached things on 90% of the defense, just not in the right way. I mean, you need to recognize that your soldier is getting dived by 3 people up on that balcony. Machi are clearly going to know exactly where XQQ are. Everyone runs a soldier up there. He's going to be up there. And if you see D.Va, Tracer, Genji start flying up there, XQQ has to jump down. Now that's giving up an advantage that you would normally have, but it's a whole lot better than dying.
Yeah, I mean, we usually see the D.Va sort of sit up there and help protect the soldier.
They didn't have a deal with it.
And that was the issue, obviously, I feel they ran into. And we see the D.Va actually coming up with the side of Machi here. I expect, again, the D.Va to be very, very reactive here in regards to protecting the likes of Nonez up there in the high ground.
Difference is SunSister are running a death ball comp of their own to try and storm onto the point. And they've got XQQ too deep there.
And it's going to just be the Roadhog destroying Zetman as he charges in here. They do manage to pick themselves 3. Odinkin getting himself a nice little kill there onto the support of SunSister, but they are just falling right now. Going to be Night Owl trying to make his way back, keep himself alive here. But now they've given ultimates here to the side of Machi. Things are going to be very hard for SunSister on point number 1.
Zetman made such a dangerous charge there, diving straight into the backlines, and Machi punished him. They've got the perfect composition to do so. Roadhog can just basically one-shot Zetman there, and then his team can just follow up on the rest, and he was so deep away from the rest of his team, no way he was going to be safe. Can't afford to do charges like that anymore. DCR1, he's also on the same limitation though, so both Reinhardts are going to have to play very, very safely, especially though Nonez up in this backline is being completely uncontested. Who's dealing with them?
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely hard fight here for SunSister, getting stuck around the statue there, and it's going to be Kant all over Zetman again, making him pay for being up in the front lines there. Nothing his team can follow up with, and look at the ultimate charge there on the side of Machi.
This is looking pretty familiar, right? Almost 6 ultimates, right? We saw that during the attack from Machi. This is even quicker that they're charging all these ults up. And once more, SunSister not dealing with Nonez up on the high ground. They still haven't swapped to anyone that can deal with it. I mean, what? Is Elu going to start skateboarding along the walls to get up there and knock him off? I don't think so.
Hey, you never know, mate. But there it is. Going to be DCR1 just finding that fire strike there onto Night Owl. Tactical Visor now coming in from Nonez, just cleaning up here. SunSister don't even know what hit them, or indeed they do. It's a Tactical Visor. And now going to have to reset again, finally getting some ultimates up of their own. Not too much committed there for the side of Machi though.
SunSister, to their credit, they're saving up ultimates too, and they're going to reap the rewards pretty imminently, especially because they killed DCR1. So if they rush this fight, they might get in there before he's available. But then again, Reinhardt can actually get back to the point pretty quickly because there's a big long line where you can charge to get there very, very quickly.
He's a very fast big man there. Here comes the nano boost right onto the whole hog here from Kant, looking to push XQQ up into the corner. The counter sound barrier coming out. Now the Graviton Surge from Odinkun. This is going to be it for SunSister. Deadeye coming in from XQQ. But is it enough there as that self-destruct from the side of Machi picks up a pair? But it's going to be SunSister slowly edging this fight out now. The brawl working out extremely well for them in the counterplay. Very, very good there. Zetman all over the point there trying to find himself a D.Va. But can the rest of these SunSister players get themselves back onto this one? Yes, they can. And they will be able to take this first cap. Machi going to have to reposition themselves on the streets phase, or will they be able to recommit into this?
Oh, they're going to try and recommit, but this is with a big numbers disadvantage.
Well, they are going to go in. Are they going to feed a lot of ultimate charge, or is it going to be the biggest play of their lives right now? Zetman picking up the first kill there. Can finding XQQ there on the Tracer. Zetman now eating the biotic grenade. Is there any damage to follow up on him? Nice charge there from Zetman to finish Kant off as well. There's going to be nothing here left for the side of Machi. They do feed a little bit too much, I feel, to the side of SunSister.
Nonez ulted during that, and that is a classic example of ulting into a fight where you're almost essentially going to lose. So I expect Nonez to actually change, but it was as they lost the point. So he's actually going to have to run all the way back. So he's either going to die here or just simply try and get the value he can out of Soldier before he actually changes. So SunSister, it took them a while, but they took the point, and this is interesting. They're running a May on XQQ.
And Mollis, though, being sneaky big man up in the high ground now, just waiting to see if he can find himself a pick up there as Machi start looking very aggressive now towards the cart, start pushing their way down the street, charging into each other, but it's going to be Odinkun coming out on top there. Bigger shatter there, connecting as well. Going to be able to clean up the last few of these Machi players down on the streets. No high ground support from the rest of Machi there. Going to be the D.Va, most likely to fall out of the neck here as well.
There's so much going on with SunSister's composition here. XQQ on May is the DPS. That's their only DPS. I mean, Roadhog does a lot of damage, basically a DPS with a lot of health, but you've got to look at it from the other way. They don't have a lot of a long-range damage, right? This is something where maybe a Fire could come into play, or even Nonez just sitting really far back. But SunSister, they're actually pushing the payload here. They've got to challenge it.
Well, Nano Boost coming in onto the May as gets taken into the sleep there very quickly. And is there any damage here for the side of SunSister? There is a charged up Zarya Graviton Surge being dropped there, but it's only going to find themselves a Lucio. but still SunSister finding themselves the kills when things looked extremely messy there. Machi still don't know how to deal with this and get destroyed there, and now we're on to point number 3.
I'm actually loving this from SunSister. This is the innovation that a team in their position needs to pull out to actually win here. This is clearly some kind of unique strategy that they've thought of, perhaps somewhere in professional play that I haven't seen, but in any case, they are still pushing the payload. And remember, these Mei walls can get them into very unique positions.
Oh, Mei up on the high ground, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to, they could put Mollis up there and he could go for those cheeky hooks as well. Whether they actually do it is another question. But remember, Machi don't have a diva.
Oh,
very
great wall,
easy.
great wall right there to lock off Machi from their Reinhardt there. And look at this, going to be Resture getting taken down. XQQ on this Mei is amazing right now, getting right up in the front lines here. And now Zetman looking to line up an Earthshatter here. Can he manage to get it past the shield of DCR1? It's going to be the Earthshatter coming out from him. Finds enough right now as the Tac Visor coming in from None is going to be cleaning up a lot of these players here. Nice opening there from that Earthshatter. Now Machi should be able to stabilize off the back of this.
They'll stabilize, but that's 2 ults that they had to use during that. So Machi going to be looking towards getting No Talk and his Graviton ready to go to get Nonez and also DCR1 charging their ults back up once more. The SunSister though, a few ults to work with. They've swapped off of that Mei, put XQQ back onto the McCree, but what is he actually going to challenge right there? Are 3 tanks on Machi. That's a lot of hit points to go through. Needs to get value out of the flashbang, shut down that Reinhardt shield. If he can get into a great position to do so, that's an easy Earth Shatter for Zetman.
A minute 30 left here for the side of SunSister, so things are running out and there is a lot of pressure on them right now to push into this fight. They need to start getting themselves a little bit more ultimate charge. They're really going to be waiting on that Odin Kun's Graviton, I feel.
But they did bait out Kant and his whole hog, right? Now they're going in. The Gravitons have come out, but the sound barrier's there.
Counter sound barrier now coming in for Machi as well to keep them through. This one, Kant going to be all over XQQ here in the close room. And now Zetman trying to fall back, keep himself alive. Will he even be able to escape with his life as Machi just hunts him down all the way up to the streets? And Machi looking very good here. 50 seconds left on the clock.
You can tell they're getting desperate because they've locked in Hanzo. XQQ is going to have to get some picks here. That's all that they're going for. They know they can't win this ultimate race. Or they aren't even likely to go for the combo, right? They don't have enough time for XQQ to get the Dragon Strike ready. I mean, that could win them the game if they get it comboed up with a Graviton Surge, but there's no time to get Dragon Strike ready, so XQQ has to find the picks. So does Mollis. SunSister are in dire situation.
And there's that Graviton Surge coming in, but Kiyomi's not in that. Should be able to keep a lot of these players alive, but he can't. And SunSister picked themselves up here. Now None is getting ready for a huge tactical visor. Kiyomi needs to get this nano boost onto him. Gonna be No Talk falling down here as well. XQQ picking himself up another pick here. Hanzo going to work right now. Now he's got himself control of the high ground, looking to scatter shot the Diva out of this one. But will they have enough time? They can't even touch the point. They are going to do it. Oh no, if they do manage to get right there, Kant flying in just in the nick of time.
No, it's got shut down.
And there comes the Earthshatter. Counter Earthshatter now coming through. Nano Boost now as well. SunSister out of nowhere. Dragon Strike coming through here as well. It's all onto Kant to keep it alive. 1.5 meters. And somehow, SunSister with no time left at all, equalize.
So we're in a very, very fun situation here.
What?
I mean, yes, that was incredible by SunSister. I've got to commend them. Street Space, Mei, XQQ. That was you know, just to make it really fun for all of us. Amazing. Right?
I couldn't help myself.
That was actually really cool how they did that as well. They also, when you recognize the enemy team does not have a diva, that's the easiest Blizzard you're ever gonna get. No threat of it getting eaten up. You can just throw it on the ground. The one time he did use Blizzard though, it didn't get a huge amount of value, but the rest of his team did manage to clean up because all of Machi were just zoned out of that ult. Now, we've actually got to talk about the results of what we've seen so far. Both teams capped it all the way through, but only one team gets time bank.
Right, yeah, of course.
And if I'm remembering correctly,
4 minutes 28.
if nothing has changed since last night, Machi just have to touch the point.
Sure, okay, we had this conversation last week, that 33% thing. It definitely wasn't live. I don't know if it's live on the patch they're playing.
Wasn't?
It's live, so it is live. So
Okay.
you do, we have confirmation. I was not talking fairy tales last week, so it is a thing. They do have to win by 33%. But because obviously, you know, they've got no time left.
They don't get a chance to attack, so their best hope is for a draw here. And even then, we'll go into Golden Point anyway. So here we are, Machi on the offense. 4.5 minutes to get onto the point. And maybe they're not even at 33%. The way that icon looks, I'm pretty sure that's not.
I mean, yes, it is not the icon, so maybe it's not live on the server that they're playing on. XQQ actually going with the Junkrat and committing to it here. So SunSister keeping things very interesting indeed. Going to be hard to catch an extremely quick Tracer now who's got control of the high ground there. They don't find the kill as well, so now Kent going to be able to deal with Odinkun as he's got the rest of Machi helping him secure this high ground. And SunSister, they're making the same mistake on from the first
but
defense.
look at how they have to play, right? They have to sit on the point. They have to have Mollis and Zetman just sitting there on Roadhog and Reinhardt. They can't leave the point because we're about to find out what happens when they leave.
And indeed, it's just going to be Machi though, since they have that full control of the high ground, just cleaning this one out extremely simply, picking up the first point with no casualties.
It's a little bit of a sad story for SunSister after that really cool offense. But at the same time, Machi absolutely deserved that win because they just demolished them on attack. We even saw it there again during time bank. It took them no time at all to take point A. Machi just played incredibly cleanly, utilizing so much value out of their own heroes without ultimates. And that's the biggest reason they were able to steamroll through, was because by the time they got to the end of the third checkpoint where defenders are so favored, they still had so many ults. They had 6 ultimates with the payload 5 meters away from victory.
I mean, we've got to give credit. We've got to give credit where it's due there to SunSister, though. I mean, that was
cool.
That was a very enjoyable.
That was ice cool.
Oh.
Because of May.
Yeah, I got you. This. I was like, Smite. Smite. Cool down, bro. Cool down.
Well,
stop.
Machi are not cooling down at all. That's 2-0 right now.
Yeah, looking very strong coming off the back of that King's Row there. I mean, it was almost flawless, I feel, on the offense there. The defense, was very good, but I think it's hard, I guess, because SunSister, what was that offense?
I mean, really interesting, but I remember like during the match, right, I was talking about ways to deal with May. May really struggles with attacking enemies at long range. If you get yourself entrenched with Nonas that are just sitting up on the high ground, shooting from afar a soldier, how are you going to get to him? I don't think that SunSister were running any vertical mobility at all, short of Odenkin on the D.Va, right? He could have flown up and dealt with Nonas, but at the same time, soldier can still duel with a D.Va if that's the only one that's up there. Just drop Biotic Field and you're not going to die at the very least. And because you're going to be the one on the defensive lines, your team is more likely to be close and help you out, shut them down, even if they're still sitting on the ground, right? That is a way to shut down something like a May. And unfortunately, I feel like it just took Machi by too much surprise for them to actually swap things up, because the payload was already halfway through by the time they saw, hang on, is that a May? Is that really a May?
And then, is that a Hanzo? Is that really a Hanzo? Is that really an offensive Hanzo?
That's right.
Yes, it is an offensive Hanzo. And yes, it did the trick, I feel. It did the trick.
I mean, he got his picks during a Graviton surge. So
you need extreme amounts of aim to hit guys in a Graviton surge.
I mean, they do kind of float a little bit. Like, they're not standing exactly still. So,
True. I mean, like,
miss.
big old hitbox on the arrows there.
The truck-sized arrows.
Nearly got to see the godly, Graviton into Dragon Strike, original wombo combo. That would have been great there.
It did take a while. Actually, it didn't end up coming up, but also the reason Hanzo was great, because remember, you're into a big flurry of bodies on the point when you're just inches away from capping the third checkpoint. Can't really throw bodies at a Dragon Strike, right?
No.
Big dragon there. You can't stand in the middle of it. We didn't see it get eaten up by Defense Matrix, and that's really the only tool you have to deal with it, short of something like a Sound Barrier. That wasn't available at all. It did shut out the victory. Well, not the victory, but for SunSister to get there and actually just close out the third checkpoint. That would have been great if Machi didn't steamroll through SunSister's defense with so much time left. In fact, if SunSister weren't held up on point A for so long, and then if they just did the third checkpoint a little bit cleaner, or at least a little bit cleaner than Machi, they could have had a chance, at the very least a chance to attack in Time Bank. But the fact that they had none at all put them in such a tough situation where you literally had to have 2 of your tanks plant their feet on the point, otherwise a Tracer's just going to come and get 1% on the point.
I totally agree with you there. I just feel it's very surprising, I guess, what SunSister sort of went with there, going for the Junkrat when pretty much they're going to get dived on instantly. They've sort of already seen, what Machi are going to be running with. Why do you think? Because I can't really work it out. What was their sort of game plan running with the Junkrat? Like, maybe smash the Reinhardt shield down like extremely quickly. Like I can't really work it out. How is it going to work out for them?
Teams actually used to run Junkrat a lot on King's Row defense on the first point. There's a really interesting point where you can sit, literally, if you're facing the attacker's spawn, just to the right of the choke point in that little building with the health pack in there,
oh, yeah, so
you can basically zone off that entire entrance, and Machi were likely to run a few tanks just to get onto the point immediately, because they've got to contest with what they know is going to be a Reinhardt and a Roadhog who will be sitting on the point. And well, I mean, Junkrat can do a lot of damage to them, but the fact is, it's too much of a gamble play, because Junkrat, he does a lot of damage,
very
right?
hit or miss, I feel.
He can definitely surprise someone, like one bomb and then you throw in your concussive mine, and that's a dead guy real quick, right? That can throw people, you know, a little bit off guard, but when it's 4.5 minutes, you can't go for something like a gamble where you just win the first fight. And even if you get ultimate advantage of that, Junkrat's ult is not the most fantastic. It doesn't win fights for you, unless you're in solo queue, of course.
I mean, you don't even use it, I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
you get it, don't use it.
Better off just holding left.
Don't
right?
use it. Don't use it.
But so the
wait for a graviton surge.
Junkrat has some merit, but it's a huge gamble, and it clearly did not pay off for SunSister.
The other thing to sort of note there as well is that the adjustment coming out from the side of SunSister, I was a little bit disappointed with it. You know, first attack, totally understandable. You know, that gets the first attack of the game. The fact that Machi, you know, ran circles around them on the point, fair enough. But the fact that they get a second chance and they still, you know, just like left solo player up there.
Yeah,
by himself.
was up there for so long.
No one, no. So when SunSister had to defend themselves on overtime,
right. Yeah.
Why not, you know, throw D.Va up there just to help defend when obviously, you know, Ken and these other players try to sort of put that pressure on him, and he can still fall down to the point if he needs to fall down to the point extremely quickly. I feel that their adjustment there, you know, still trying to use the high ground, but not putting anyone to help, you know, their high ground player.
It looked like they were trying to like put a trick room up there, right? Where everyone goes up to dive against what's probably going to be a soldier up there. You've sent half your team to go dive on top of him. It's just a D.Va, and you're like, I can't kill this. Even with 3 of us, we can't kill this. He's just
maybe that was the Junkrat's job.
Yeah.
You know, bait like 3 dudes into that tiny little corner of the room, and then just unload into it.
Yeah,
but
that would have worked.
That would have worked.
But the thing is, Machi had a D.Va of their own, so he would have just used Defense Matrix anyway.
Eat some grenades for dinner.
I talk about how much they would have thought, oh no, we can't kill a D.Va up here, it's not a soldier. They did end up actually killing a Denkin. They killed the D.Va, and that's already one guy out of the fight, and this is also a D.Va who can fly between the point and the high ground, which you need to be able to be on the point at a moment's notice. And once you lose the D.Va, you lose the high ground immediately. I mean, what's Junkrat going to do? Like, use his mine to get up there? That's way too slow. Someone's just going to shoot you out of the air. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they will. I mean,
yeah, they will. I'm just like, I love myself some Junkrat plays.
Even when he gets up there, what's he going to do? There's already 3 people up there. He can't kill a D.Va.
He's going to punch them.
Give him the old 1-2?
Yeah, no, or just the one. Just the one. You can only give him the one. Well, if you are just joining us here, it's going to be Machi Esports taking on the likes of SunSister. They lead the series 2-0. We are going to take a quick break. We'll catch you when we're back. Hello and welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship English broadcast. I'm Dallas Easy5. Today joining me here on the desk, Matt Smite Ross. And if you're just joining us, it's Machi taking on SunSister. Machi leading the series 2-0 right now. And SunSister showing a lot of signs of improvement, but I mean, back against the wall now coming into map number 3.
I mean, it's fantastic when you're sitting there looking at SunSister when they're on attack. They bring out things like Mei on offense during King's Row, and you think, oh man, they actually did it. They got it all the way to the end. And then you sit back and look at how Machi did their offense, and when they were actually in control, especially during the 3rd map on Lijiang Tower as well. When Machi are in control, they are in control completely. And also, just that King's Row offense, there's so much to say about it in the fact that they were winning 90% of that offense without using ultimates except for Pulse Bomb, which just charges up so fast anyway. So it's looking really, really one-sided when Machi want it to be, but SunSister are showing signs of fighting back, but we're going into Assault, and this is where you need to go all in right now. You cannot fall short of capping this point, right? Because Machi, after what we saw on King's Row, they're going to 2-cap you. They're going to 2-cap. They're going to 2-cap
The prophet has spoken. They will 2-cap you.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm calling it right now. At least a 2-cap. SunSister though, again, they show that they can get it all the way to the end of King's Row, but it took some unique approaches, and they still only managed to get it in overtime. So it's going to be about how much time Machi can actually buy on the first point, because I don't see SunSister taking the point on their very first push, and also how SunSister move on to the second point, because if they don't take it on their first push after capping point A, I don't see SunSister capping both points.
I'm going to have to agree with that there. It's sort of like, as I mentioned previously, just before we went to break, there was the, I guess, on-the-fly adaptation coming out from SunSister just isn't really there. Maybe it's a little bit of a lack of communication on the team. Maybe it's just, I don't know, they don't have... I'm about to say they don't have as deep a hero pool as Machi do, but they obviously have just shown that they do, you know, running in a Mei on attack, a Hanzo on attack as well.
No,
you know,
okay. So XQQ has
Okay, they've got one player who can do it,
but
can the rest of them step up?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown signs of doing both dive and death ball, and I think their death ball is probably more effective because it unlocks XQQ on the DPS heroes he plays. McCree especially, great at shutting down Reinhardt's as well. Usually, he's not killing them, that's for sure, but he's opening up the rest of his team, shutting down that shield, stunning him so it's not there. And then also, during charges, I mean, I've seen him flashbang Reinhardt's out of charges as well. So Death Ball seems to favor what SunSister are bringing right now. Usually though, teams like to run dive on this assault, and even some of the best teams like Blank right now, they're running triple DPS. I don't see SunSister running that composition effectively, right?
Well, Machi have just picked Volskaya Industries, and coming off last night as well, you know, they picked themselves up 2 wins there, and they also obviously, you know, coming into this game looking to pick themselves up a 3rd win streak. So Machi feeling very confident, you know, coming off a lot of momentum. And just to sort of talk about, I guess, your mention to the triple DPS, I definitely feel like both of these teams don't really have... Maybe Machi more so could probably pull triple DPS off a little bit more than SunSister could. I mean, we just talked with Admiral just in the break there as well, that Rai's not actually playing tonight for the side of Machi there. So, I mean, maybe if they ran, I guess, the lineup of, you know, Rai, Kant, and Nunez, then maybe triple DPS could work out for them.
It's an option.
But I think with the lineup that they're running tonight, you know, they definitely work better with that Death Ball combo, and I think that will work out a lot better for them on the defense. And I mean, probably the offense as well. I think they probably need to run dive, though.
Yeah, I think the biggest question right now is going to be, mostly on defense, but also a little bit on offense too, is that Nunez on his soldier has to be addressed, right? We saw how effective he was in the first point of King's Row, and hey, hybrid, that's just like assault, right? You're capping a point, and it took SunSister a while to deal with him, and in the end, they actually just dealt with everyone on the ground first, and usually that's an answer you can pull out against something like a pharmacy combo, where you just deal with everyone on the ground first, but against a soldier, you can't reliably do that. You actually have to go up and address him, and so it took a while for SunSister to actually capture that point on King's Row. So you don't have that luxury on assault maps, right? Especially the first point. If Nunez is just entrenched on this first point, constantly moving between the 2 parts on the high ground on Volskaya, he's going to be so hard to deal with. They are definitely going to need to run something like a Diva or even a Genji just to go up and deal with them.
I'm glad you brought that up there, because that was sort of going to be my next talking point, I suppose. Machi are very methodical, I feel, when it comes to these. You know, we saw it on King's Row, the way that they know exactly what they needed to control before they all pushed in and committed to the point there. No one was really, you know, charging in a little bit too soon. We saw Odinkun, I think, a couple of times, or was it Zetman, I think?
Yeah.
Zetman went in a couple of times a little bit too early. Odinkun was actually quite reserved, I feel, and that was sort of going back to the earlier comments about how, you know, he's really good at sort of keeping XQQ alive in these fights. But when Machi come to their offense on this, I feel that it's going to be interesting to see what they've come up with, because it's quite easy on point number 1 to hold it for the most part of the time there until right at the end, if, you know, there's some good sort of macro play coming out from these teams. That's when they really are able to hold the point 1, you know, all the way up until the end, and the attacking side can really just go in, you know, with a 6 ultimate stack and just blow them off it. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Machi approach their first point attack, if they actually go for sort of a 2-pronged attack. We've seen a lot of teams, you know, go in the front gate, go to the right side and get the high ground around that side and control from there.
To do that though, you're going to need mobile tanks and even mobile DPS, right? Because if you go with a 2-pronged assault and suddenly the entire defending team is in one of those prongs, you're just going to kill your 3 guys.
True.
So you need to have the rest of your team able to go into their part of the assault and say, okay, look, there's no one here. We're jumping over. We're coming over to help our buddies. And if you don't have that, like I said, 6 guys are just going to kill 3 guys.
Well, I think they're also with the fact that they've got, you know, Nunez, and they've got Kant as well, and both of these sort of players have shown exceptional communication with each other, I feel, on the Genji and the Tracer here. They're very good at working together and getting up in the back lines together. So I think that that's going to be their big strength before they push in, using these two players to sort of push in, scout, see what they can find on the points, and then obviously, you know, go from there. I think that, again, I'm going to go back to probably expecting to see dive coming out from them just because of these,
run dive, yeah.
just because of those two players and what they sort of seem to favor coming into this one. I feel the likes of SunSister, I think we're going to see Odin Kun on the hog again, though.
It's really a toss-up, right? Because it depends on what's run on offense, but you can't predict that when you're defending, right? You've already got to run all the way to the point. So if Machi are running dive, or if SunSister are predicting Machi to run dive, then Roadhog is definitely the answer. It can shut down the Genji, can shut down the Tracer. But the second that there is a threatening soldier, D.Va becomes a very good option as well. So it's going to be about what SunSister are predicting. Now, I'm saying that Machi are very likely to run dive. There'll be Genji and Tracer, so Odenkin should look to go for that Roadhog though. But he may be predicting that a soldier might come out, and also we're talking about triple DPS. That might come out too, and they might be predicting that.
Will be very interesting to see if we do actually get to see a triple DPS lineup here on Volskaya Industries. I know I'm a big fan of sort of watching for that style of play. You know, some of the fights are extremely very quick. Oh, but it looks like Nona is going to go for the Sombra here, go for that very early EMP into this one.
Yeah, no anti-dive at all though, unless you really consider what Sombra can bring. I mean, Sombra can shut down a lot of divers. Now, SunSister on attack, they're running quite a lot of dive, but they've also got anti-dive as well, which is great running into Machi, because look at that Tracer, even Sombra, he shut it down with a hook, shut it down with a flashbang. And look at this, they're just storming onto the point. But like I said, they've got elements of dive so that they can assist each other in those two-pronged assaults.
And they have set up very well here as well. No pressure now going on to Kiyomi, as he's going to have a lot of free time to find damage here with this soldier. There's going to need to be a big sort of change coming up from the side of SunSister here. They're going to need to deal with the soldier up there on the high ground. As you can see, XQQ already getting pressured out of his peaking position here. No kills going out though, but Zepman dropping extremely low into this one as he re-engages and gets destroyed there by DCR1. Now the EMP coming in as well. Can they manage to clean these kills up here, Machi? And indeed, they should be able to here, finding a couple there. There is support here for the likes of XQQ. He will be able to fall back, and indeed he will just fall to his doom as well. There'll be another to follow, and that'll be Night Owl.
SunSister got a pick at the start of that onto Cat. They killed him with XQQ. That should have been the moment that they went in, but they were too hesitant. They were too worried about what happens if Nonez has his EMP. But eventually, we saw what happened when they went in a little bit awkwardly. And also, it took them so long that Kant was actually already back. Tracer comes back from the spawn quite quickly, of course, being a very mobile hero. But there's a pick that they could use. Are they actually going to utilize it this time? Are they going to just dive onto the point, dive onto the enemy team, take them out now while you have the numbers advantage?
I feel like they should definitely get in there as well. They do have a few ultimates to work with. Very optimistic Helix Rocket coming in there from Kiyomi, but Kant going to be finishing off XQQ there. Now Tactical Visor coming in here as well. Can he find anything with this? Does manage to stagger this kill here onto Mollis. Will find him just before he can even jump off the edge as well. So great stuff here from Machi, getting very aggressive and chasing down the last few of those SunSister players as well.
Machi are really punishing the hesitation coming out from SunSister, and also the lack of respect that they're bringing to Kiyomi. Also, by the way, he was support last game, playing soldier this time, so Machi's showing that they can mix up the roles a little bit, but no one is on Machi, and the only time that they show any attention to him at all, it's a missed pulse bomb. So SunSister, they are changing things up. Mollis onto that Genji. I believe that's the right answer to deal with Kiyomi. You've got the vertical mobility to shut him off the high ground, which is what you need. But hey, EMP is ready for Machi. They should be able to win this fight. Here it comes.
Well, 4 ultimates in the hands there for the side of SunSister. Sound barrier being used right now as well. Let's see what they're going to opt with here. Needs to be the biggest Deadeye. It's going to be the nano boosted whole hog coming in right now. But is it enough there? Only 1 kill. It's going to be the Deadeye committed as well from XQQ. And they've found 1. Make that 2 kills here on the side of Machi. Kent, who did indeed have the ultimate up, does get taken down here. Primal Rage coming in from DCR1 to try and keep this one alive here. XQQ under a lot of pressure, and he will find his death there. And now Zepman going to be falling as the last one off that get themselves 6.7%, but that's definitely not enough.
And Machi actually managed to hold that right. They lost quite a few members at the start of that, and they've actually lost DCR1 here, so once more SunSister have a numbers advantage, but they just get taken out again. It's just an even fight. They're being quite hesitant there, not using their advantages, and every single time, they've got to find these windows, right? Machi are relying pretty heavily on EMP. It's so quick to charge for Sombra. You need to go in during those windows where they don't actually have EMP, because look at that, there it is once more.
There it comes now, Tactical Visor from Kiyomi should be able to clean up with this one. Nice little repositioning there coming out from a couple of these SunSister players as they pick themselves up a pair. But now Machi going to be able to answer back on this one. Kiyomi still very uncontested up on the high ground here.
3 seconds.
Elu going to be taken as well. And I mean, this last fight from SunSister doesn't even look like they wanted to cap this point. Very much, I don't even feel like they wanted it as much as Machi wanted to hold that one down.
Hesitation. Hesitation was definitely the key word there.
No, we don't even want to cap the point. Don't even want it.
No.
Don't want it.
Who wants a stupid old point anyway?
We just want to hold you at point 1 as well. And
just the chance for BM, like, if we hold you at 6%, how bad are you going to feel? But unfortunately, I don't think that's actually what they were going for. So
obviously.
SunSister were just punished every time they were a little bit too slow, because every single time we saw the EMP just come back up basically every fight for Machi, right? And it just shuts down so much of what SunSister can bring. Their flanking DPS is always going to be shut down. And also to note, he was always hit by the EMP, right? Whether he's on Genji, whether he's on Tracer, Mollis was always hit by that EMP, and it just shuts those two heroes right down.
I mean, so there's like the discussion there of is that I feel like that's known as being a good player, though. I think his positioning a lot of the time on the Sombra was pretty good. Got caught out a couple. He actually got caught out once, I believe, by Mollis, I think, when he pushed up a little bit too far, trying to get himself a health pack. But I mean, like, you know, with the likes of Sombra there, it's still quite hard to read, you know, what her ultimate's probably, you know, sitting on, considering, you know, a lot of the charges coming from that health pack charge.
You can also bait it out, right?
Yeah, the thing is why not still just go in even when you do have that player advantage, because it is still only a Sombra. And if you do split yourselves up, an EMP can't destroy you all.
Exactly right, and that's the other thing that SunSister weren't really doing. They weren't splitting up. They were constantly being in positions where multiple members of their team could get hit by EMP. Now, it's a huge AoE, but it is blocked by line of sight. You can actually block it, but Nonez, like he said as well, you've got to commend his positioning where he's able to get into the positions to hit the multiple members of SunSister on that offense, and also shutting them down massively. Now, 6%, that's not a big number. SunSister really got to cut it out for them here on defense. They're not running a Sombra though.
Very standard offense, I believe, coming in here from the side of Machi. Going to just look to try and get Ken up in the back lines first of all, and then set Nonez up on a high ground himself. And I feel like this is going to work out very well for them. Kent's shown time and time again he's a very reliable tracer. Very good. Oh, they already just go straight onto the point there. And now look, they do opt for that high ground control there. Even trades coming out as we begin the bit of the brawl going on up here in the high ground. Nonez easily able to have support there. And the cap comes in. It's going to be No Talk having none of this right here and just capping this one out almost by himself. And that's going to be that.
That's just the reality of having to defend 6% on the point. You're just too torn between the high ground. It's not like King's Row where you can easily just jump back down and jump back up, and only a few members actually need to be up there, right? In Volskaya, you need to defend not just the high ground, but like all of the high ground. There's a balcony behind it that the attackers can actually get to and hide behind. There's two opposite sides of the point, and it's actually quite a wide point as well.
Oh my goodness, I didn't catch that one there, but DCR1 just sent Odinkun actually across the map. Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you see?
Ragdoll physics, right?
Like, he just like threw him around like, I'm not going to use any analogies right there, but he threw him, he definitely manhandled him there a little bit.
Just a little bit. But key thing to take away from this is that Machi, maybe last night wasn't a fluke indeed, and maybe they are on the upswing. Yes, they only beat the team at the bottom of the table.
Second bottom.
Second last. Second bottom.
Second and bottom.
Yeah, second and bottom.
Where we speak English really good.
But at the same time, right? If they had lost a map here, it would have shown maybe last night was a bit of a fluke. How do they beat Flash Wolves? Maybe Flash Wolves were making too many mistakes. But right now, I've got to say, Machi really on the upswing, really just getting the expected results against SunSister, right? Coming into this, even before last night, you'd be saying, Machi, SunSister, yeah, I'd say 3-0, and that's what they got. And after last night as well, they just they're really locking themselves in as a team that should be rising up the ranks, rising up the table. Remember, at the end of the last round robin, we had the standings. Every team had beaten the team below them. This time, it's not the case right now, because Flash Wolves clearly haven't beaten Machi anymore, and with Machi moving up even further, they're just going to start messing things up. The big question is whether other teams can start to do that. SunSister have already shown they can't beat the team that's directly above them.
Well, I mean, this is coming into week number 4, day 2 here. Things are starting to get shaken up quite immensely now. If you're just joining us there, that's going to be Machi Esports taking down SunSister. They are playing back-to-back tonight, so they will be playing Detonated Gold after this one. It's going to be very interesting to see how the standings look. You know, Machi coming off a couple of wins from last night, picking this one up as well, so they are on a 3-game streak. Probably looking to make that 4, I'd say, after that one. So I guess the confidence...
I think that's actually their fourth win total. Yeah.
Fifth win total? Or
the next match will be their 5th win in total. So if they win against Detonated Gold, which by the way, they're expected to, because
Detonated Gold are bottom.
Yeah, Detonated Gold are sitting below SunSister. So again, expected to win.
Calls.
But Machi, if they win that, they'll go up to 5-5. And while it's not impressive compared to some of the big dogs at the top of the table, that's still a lot more than they were, you know, looking to get on paper at the start of this week. Beating Flash Wolves was a huge win for that. Now they're just getting the expected wins against these 2 Japanese teams. I mean, we're calling it like it's already happened against Detonator, but
hey man, I've been a fan of Detonator since the blank game. You know, I got big hopes for the Detonator
since the blank
boys.
game day 1.
Yeah.
I mean that was a pretty big game, right? That was pretty massive. Anakin, he showed up huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Has yet to really prove himself since that day 1, and a lot of people will put down blank to just having day 1 nerves, not playing at their optimal level, but hey, I mean, maybe he comes up today. I mean, if Machi can show up against Flash Wolves, maybe Anakin can show up against Machi.
Well, we will find out. That's going to be our next match coming up. After that, it's going to be Hong Kong Attitude taking on Detonated Gold. They're going to be the second back-to-back of the night. And then to finish us off here tonight, it's going to be Fireball taking on Blank Esports. The local boys get to see, obviously, how much... The real question here is obviously, I think Blank, you know, going to be looking good going into that game. But Fireball, you know, being one of those sort of very, very quick improving sort of teams there, you know, I think a lot of it sort of comes down to Apudo and NZNR, I believe it is, just sort of really being able to lead these guys, you know, take them to a next level, which has been very dominant, very predominant in the last couple of weeks. So coming up against Blank, going to be very good to see how those 2 teams match up there as well. Detonated Gold, though, going to have a good 2 chances, though, to show us if they've made some improvements of their own, looking to pick themselves up their 1st win on the board.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to remember, these guys have had it rough. Not even able to beat their sister Japanese team. You can see right there, 0-7. That's not only not a fantastic result if you're looking to get the most points possible, but also just a little bit demoralizing as well. Remembering that the one win that they could have got went to a 5th match, and it was a very close 5 maps as well. So Detonated Gold, hopefully since last week, they've picked themselves back up and they're not letting it get to them. Remember, these guys, both the Japanese teams actually really prioritize, well, not prioritize, but really value the power of the synergy and friendship that they've got going on between the players, right? And a big part of that has got to be morale as well. During this series against Machi, though, SunSister, either they were looking very, very focused or very, very upset. I mean,
they were looking a bit cheery, especially after their attack on King's Row when we saw the player cams there.
They should have.
They were super chuffed with themselves, I think, after that. But again, it's really hard to say, you know, when we don't really get to interview these players ourselves in regards to what the issues actually are. You know, are they communication issues, or are they purely sort of mechanical skill issues that they really can't, I guess, you know, really match up to Machi? It looks like they can, you know, obviously from a spectator's point of view. But when it comes to the in-game sort of decision-making process, you know, how maybe Machi can sort of outthink them on the fly, you know, the likes of Kant. If they do block him on that specific high ground route, he might take a longer one from the back of the street side, for example.
Yeah.
And would they be able to adjust to that? You know, they might be able to draw themselves a little bit more time, but would they still be able to actually hold them down? That's the question.
So I think on a purely mechanical level as well, like as a team against another team, just from that King's Row offense, I'm definitely saying Machi have got it much better than SunSister, right? Remember, they were basically using no macro strategy in that. They were simply killing SunSister just through frags, right? Because as we saw, they didn't use any ultimates apart from Pulse Bomb until the very end of that match. So they were quite comfortable just killing SunSister. And, you know, that's a very valuable thing to have. And going up against Detonator Gold, who I've got to say...
Should be worried now at this point, I'd say.
On a mechanical level, probably still not even up to the standards of even SunSister. They didn't win their fight. They don't have XQQ, so they're facing even more dire straits right now.
Well, interview time. Let's see what was working out for the likes of Machi. Are we?
Don't think we're doing interviews.
We're not doing it. We don't want to worry. So I can sort of hear it in my ear here. I'll try to translate for you guys.
I don't know. Let's. I think we'll just carry on, right? I mean, we've got a long night ahead of us. Let's also consider like coming into the next series, right? I mean, Detonator, right? They just saw their fellow Japanese team pretty much get the floor wiped with them, right? I mean, yeah, SunSister had some promising moments, but Machi are on a roll.
They're definitely on a roll. They've got the ball rolling, especially through. I guess the sort of big thing that's really the strength for them is their ability. So I talked about SunSister's ability to not adapt throughout the game. It's I guess Machi's biggest strength. It sort of showed, especially when they came up against some of the stronger teams last night, Flash Wolves, and I think it was AHQ. It was AHQ. These are two teams which really, I guess, were sitting top three.
Yeah.
And Machi sitting down at number 6. Took wins against both of these teams.
Flash
there.
Wolves out.
They didn't beat AHQ as well.
AHQ beat Flash Wolves is the result from last night.
Oh right. Should really
right.
just focus on that.
It's all right, but
focus on what I'm looking at.
It's still the same point, right?
Yeah.
Though, a 6th place team taking out the 2nd place team right now, when we had such clear-cut standings before, is huge for them. And also, I was talking about morale, how it could affect Detonator after seeing what happened to SunSister. We've also got to remember Machi have had some massive wins right now and should be feeling great as well. And they're also playing in their homeland, right? They've got the crowd backing as well.
I mean, that's always something that's going to, I guess, work in your favor there. But it's interesting, I guess, to note, when it's Flash Wolves, coming up against Machi, for example, who do they cheer for?
I mean, I'd say Flash Wolves probably
the Golden Goose Flash Wolves.
Yeah, Flash Wolves probably have more fans on an international level, probably in Taiwan as well. But also, a lot of people like the underdogs. Like to see them pull out a victory.
I know I was cheering for Machi last night. I know you were as well.
I was secretly cheering for it. I mean,
Secretly?
Secretly, yeah. No, I was blatantly saying it in the chat.
Spamming in the chat. I was spamming in the chat as well.
But I mean, also, like, I'm a big sucker for underdogs. So, like, there's definitely going to be that kind of backing in the crowd as well. But as a whole, Flash Wolves will definitely have more favor. Yet Machi still won. This time, they're going into both their matches with a big fan following. Well, maybe even a bigger fan following after taking out Flash Wolves as well. So the crowd's going to be on their side. And they're also coming off a roll, like 2 best-of-5 wins in the last 2 days. Big wins, one of them being a huge win. And also, it's going to be a 3-0 against one of the Japanese teams. They can take that into the next one.
Well, next up is going to be Machi taking on Detonator Gold. We are just going to cut to a short break, and we'll see you all when we return.